Hey, what's up? Good morning out there. We're living in some interesting times right now. It is September the 11th. It is probably, well, let's see, it's about a little past 7 here in Phoenix and 7 a.m. And it was a little bit, probably, I believe it was a little bit before this that the planes impacted the World Trade Center and then the Pentagon in Washington, and then the flight 93 in Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to share where where I was on 9/11, and feel free to comment below to share your experience as well. I grew up back east. I'm I was born in Connecticut, raised in California, but my teenage years and my preteen years were spent in the Philadelphia area and in Connecticut and ultimately New Hampshire, which is where I spent most of my teen years. I had a grandfather, rest in peace, Pop, who lived in Queens, in New York, and we used to go there and see him sometimes. So, of course, we would always see the New York City skyline, the Empire State Building, and the Twin Towers were always what what we would look for. You know, especially when driving there at nighttime, we can see them from miles and miles away. From There's only one time when I never went inside the World Trade Center, although I always wanted to go. During one of the trips to Queens to see my pop, we drove by the Twin Towers. They were just so tall you couldn't even see. You couldn't see them all. You couldn't even see them from all the way up. I mean, from inside the vehicle at least. So, and then Christmas of 1998, when I was living in New Hampshire, my sister was was dating this guy that worked as a security guard at the Empire State Building. And one night, me, my mom, my sister, and her then boyfriend went to see the Rockette show there on Broadway, I believe it was, or one of the theaters there, 42nd Street. I don't remember, but anyways, it was around Christmas of '98. It was an unusually warm night. The temperature was probably in the 60s. The city is usually freezing at that time. And after the Rockette show, my mom drove with my sister, and I rode with my sister's boyfriend in his car. He's a total New Yorker, just yelling, screaming, blasting his horn, whipping between the cars, And we pulled into the garage of the Empire State Building. So it was after hours, so he gave us a private tour of it. And when we got up to the top of the Empire State Building, the west, north, and east side, it was nice and calm. It was very quiet because there was no tourists there. It was at nighttime, late at night, so it was a very memorable moment. It was just the four of us up there, and there's no wind, very calm. But on the south side of the Empire State Building, it was windy. Suddenly, it was just windy. I guess it must have been the sea breeze coming off the Atlantic Ocean. And looking to the south, you can see the Twin Towers, and I just probably spent 5, maybe 10 minutes there just staring at them. I just remember the lights in them, and the antenna of the North Tower had this red light. It would just very slowly kind of flicker or blink off and on. And then the last time I saw them in person was back in 2000. I had just gone back to my first trip to Brazil. I got a lot of family down there, and when coming back, we did a layover in Atlanta. We were flying back to Boston Logan, and we flew over Manhattan. We flew just a little bit to the south of Manhattan. We were practically flying over Manhattan Island. I remember as we were heading northeast towards Boston, looking out because we were sitting on the left side of the plane, looking out the window. Right below, you can see Manhattan. It was on a clear sunny day, and I remember the Twin Towers just looked so tiny. They kind of look from the plane, because we were flying at 37,000 feet cruising altitude. They look kind of like this, standing up above the surrounding city. And I had a little disposable camera with me, and I took a picture of it. And that was the last time I saw it. Now on 9/11 itself, we had been living in Texas at this time, My dad's job had relocated there, so we had to move. And I wound up doing my 12th grade high school year there. And I graduated high school that year. And I was working, if y'all remember the old department store that's long gone, Mervin's. I was working there part-time at the time. And this was at my parents' old house in Plano, which is north of Dallas, off Legacy Drive. And it was my day off. It was on a sunny day, and my mom came into the room, woke me up. She was on the phone with my brother. She was in her robe, and the first thing she said to me was, D, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone with your brother. They blew up the World Trade Center, and they hit the Pentagon too. And they also hit Pennsylvania. Go turn on the TV. So I was like, okay. My very first thought was, again, because I remember the World Trade Center bombing of 1993. So my first thought was maybe they used a truck or something with a bomb in it, because when they said blew up World Trade Center, that was what I thought at first. So I took a couple minutes getting up. I still have to sleep. My eyes barely awake. My eyes barely open. And then I marched into the living room there and turned on the TV. And of course, the news channel was on, and America under attack. I remember seeing the lines there, and seeing the towers come down. It was just, I know that affected us all in some way, regardless of our age, but being 18 years old and at the time and having no friends, no girlfriend or any of that, I didn't really know anybody there, and trying to figure out my life, it was like, yeah, welcome to the world, man, So, watching the people jump out of the buildings, and just watching the Twin Towers just come down and the planes flying into them, despite how many times I just watched it on repeat, I won't watch that now because we know what happened, Now, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories or any of that, so if any of you are watching this are into that, I'm not going to, I'm just going to stick with the official report and with what we saw. No offense, but yeah, I won't watch that now, especially in the age we live in now with just all this violence going on, and just get tired of it. Why do we need to watch something that we know? I mean, to each their own. That happened. Maybe it's just a sign that your humanity hasn't quite died, which I guess would be a good thing. So I haven't been back to New York yet since 9/11, and I've been wanting to go take the opportunity to visit there. And what I remember from that time was for a brief moment, our country was united. There were no Democrats, no Republicans, just Americans. We were all united. We wanted to go kick the hell out of the bastards who were behind that. But like all things, it didn't last, because by 2002 the rhetoric for the Iraq War started heating up, and that started to create the new divide. The divide had been there, kind of, but not to the extent like it would become. And it seems like ever since then, this divide, up to this day in 2025, it's been there, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but back in 2002, we were like, okay, we're going after Al Qaeda in Afghanistan. We've already taken out some people there, our military, and we're on the right track, yada yada yada. And then, what does Iraq have to do with this? They didn't attack us on 9/11. there's just so many things there's so many things that didn't make sense when they were trying to build the case for the Iraq War, and at the time, Republicans in particular, because I'll tell you, because that's the thing with Trump. I know some of you mags are probably watching out there. With this blind loyalty to Trump, it was the same thing during the Bush years. During George W. Bush. Like, for example, you would see stickers on vehicles saying, in a big W, the president. Don't disrespect the president. It was the same kind of thing back then, except it was George W. Bush. And I remember their protests were starting to grow about that. The Iraq War was never that popular. Although it didn't stop George W. Bush from winning a second term in 2004. This pointless war that we would get into and would kill thousands of our soldiers for what for? And yeah, I'm gonna pause for a moment. Yeah, back then, mosquitoes are out there. Back in 2004, it was just, yeah. Anyways, I won't get too much into it. Bin Laden has been, we finally got him after, 10 years after 9/11 in 2011, and while Bin Laden might be long dead, it seems like his vision is very much alive. If he was around today, he'd be having wet dreams about what's going on in the country, the divide and the political violence and just the destruction of our democracy and us wanting to trade our freedom for security. This was exactly what he wanted to see happen. So while our founding fathers might be turning in their graves, Bin Laden, I don't know what terminology to put in the opposite of that. He probably wishes he was around to see what's going on today. So, and for those Gen Z, youngsters out there, they've been living this, growing up in a post 9/11 world. All they've just seen is violence. Just if you remember back during the Iraq War, Nick Berg getting decapitated and all those beheadings that they had on live TV. It's like, what kind of world are we heading into, man? I'm just very concerned about the direction that the country's headed, and not just the country but the world. Because there's a lot of things going on right now, just the violence, but also the AI. The global human-made climate change, and then with the Palantir and building the surveillance state that I guess, are going to be living in. I'm just gonna have to, I guess, get used to this new reality somehow, unless we somehow put a stop to it. But as a nation of people, we have to want that. The question is how many of us do, or care enough at least. I guess we'll find out. And anyways, I guess that's all I have to add for right now. And thank you for watching. Thank you for your time, and please drop a comment below. Share your 9/11. Please feel free to share your 9/11 experience and where you were that day. And in the meantime, I'll just say it anyways. Make it a great day, and let's just be kind to each other and treat each other well. Peace out. Love y'all.